on, guys? Welcome back to the Rant and Review Pro Wrestling. We are reviewing AEW and New Japan Pro Wrestling's Forbidden Door 2024 pay-per-view event. Overall thoughts, a mixed bag on the show for me. This was just funny because usually the Forbidden Door shows the past 2 years, the prior 2 years, I should say, have been pay-per-view of the year contenders. This year, I can't say the same about this year's show, and I think it's part of maybe the novelty of it has worn off, but I think part of the novelty of Forbidden Door wearing off is the fact, and we brought this up before, that the rosters between the two companies don't seem balanced. The first year and the second year, there seemed to be enough big main event stars in New Japan to match up against enough big main event stars in AEW, and there were some matchups we hadn't seen before. Since then, it seems that the partnership is not... It must be very hard for them to do this partnership correctly, but again, I also think that so many of the big name stars, like Jay White, like Kazuchika Okada, like Will Ospreay, and even guys like Katsuyori Shibata, whose return to the ring you thought would happen in New Japan, has actually been more in AEW. So there's a bit there that made this show feel off for somebody like myself who is a fan of New Japan and AEW. It felt like we were missing some things. I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I did feel like I missed the House of Torture on this show. It's like that's like what's going on in New Japan now. And certainly none of the Bullet Club War Dogs, although there was an announcement tonight that makes me think that we may be getting that down the line. But let's look at the big highlights of the show. The things that stood out to me as positives and negatives. The negatives, I would have to say, the pacing was off on this match. It felt like they were kind of rushing at the conclusion of matches to get to the next thing. Some of the matches, again, this is a problem with the booking, the kind of chaotic booking. A lot of things are going on, but when you feel you're going to get some resolution to them, you're not getting resolution to them. The crowd in the show, they were like hot and cold. Like some matches they were really hot for, and other matches they were cold for. So it was kind of an up and down rough night, and it's been a rough period for AEW over the last couple of months anyway. I think the matches that stood out to me the most, Toni Storm, Michikawa, that was a fun match. That was a really great AEW Women's title match. And it did have the story involved with it, with Mariah May, and then the threesome that emerged after the match as Toni Storm retains the AEW Women's Championship. Meanwhile, I can't say the same for the TBS Women's Championship, and there's going to be there are going to be discussions about Mercedes Moné and her run in AEW so far. There have been people who have been kind of critical of it. It is not as hot and as on fire as I think a lot of people expected it to be, and I think that is. There's a lot of reasons for that, but Stephanie Vaquer, I felt like their chemistry did not work very well on this match. And there were a couple matches on this night that was the case. However, the end of the match brought out one of the more exciting, noteworthy moments of the night. Mercedes did defeat Stephanie Vaquer, so she is now both the AEW TBS champion and the New Japan Strong Women's champion. So that all came about. The fans were kind of booing her a little bit. And then the big surprise, Britt Baker, DMD, comes out. This was one of the bigger pops of the night. She stands off on the rampway, giving this face-to-face with Mercedes. So obviously that's probably going to be one of the big matches for All In, which, that makes sense. That is a match you would have at All In. I do like the fact that the All In card seems to be shaping up as their biggest card of the year, and they're treating it that way so far. We'll see how far that goes. Some of the other matches on the night, MJF defeated Hechicero, an early match that was okay. It was a tough match to see these two guys beat each other up a little bit, but MJF did get the win. I thought this match, actually I'm kind of surprised it happened, because I thought when they said, when the Young Bucks made this match, they were like, well, that has to be made official, but it became the official match. I thought they'd have MJF facing somebody else on the show, but this was a fine match. It was fine for what it was, but I did think MJF would be a factor later in the show. I thought a lot of other people would be a factor later in the show, but we didn't get any of that. The Elite, Matt Jackson, Nicholas Jackson, and Kazuchika Okada, and probably one of the more entertaining matches of the night, took on Scissor Ace, Anthony Bowens, Matt Caster, and Hiroshi Tanahashi. Cannot say enough about Okada and his transition to Western wrestling. He is a standout on AEW television, which is, again, really funny because a lot of people are like, can Okada translate to, it's very hard for Japanese wrestlers to translate over to the States, and everything Okada has been doing, in-ring work and these bitch promos have been pretty good. Max Caster had a whole rap where he kind of tried to throw cold water on Okada's bitch gimmick that's going on right now, but I don't know if that really works as well as they thought it was going to work. Cool seeing Okada and Tanahashi squaring off again, even though like Tanahashi clearly is over the hill. They were getting that across in this match. Tanahashi does take the pin from one Rainmaker from Okada, which for us who were watching New Japan in the 2010s, seeing one Rainmaker take down Tanahashi is kind of a shock because it usually was like 4 or 5 of them bitches back 7 years ago. But Tanahashi is not the same Tanahashi from then. He's over that hill now, and it showed in this match. Bryan Danielson and Shingo Takagi was probably one of my favorite matches, if not 1A, 1B of the night. This match lived up to my expectations. It did have some shaky moments in there, but this was amazing. This was a great showing, and I think, and this is for New Japan, a lot of New Japan fans want to know what the purpose of this is. I think a match like this, a lot of the fans who've seen this match, they are going to know the name of Shingo Takagi, and despite whatever podcasters or YouTubers don't know who he is, yet claim that they watch New Japan, but whatever. I think the AEW audience is much more familiar now with Shingo Takagi, and it's things like this and matches like this is what New Japan needs to get out of this, because they need to get their stars to have bigger name recognition in these matches. And even though Danielson did beat Shingo Takagi, Takagi had the majority of his match. He beat the living snot out of Bryan Danielson for most of this match. Danielson did get the win by submission, though, and advances on in the men's side of the Owen Hart Cup tournament. Zack Sabre Jr. took on Orange Cassidy in submission in a random singles match, which I think went about 5 minutes too long. But they told a cool story, but there were parts of the moment of the match I could feel that it dragged. But the ending sequence of Zack, and you got to see Zack work his magic, and the closing, finishing submission was absolutely fantastic. That was a thing of beauty, and even the Western fans bought into it. So Zack Sabre Jr., as I expected, did get the win over Orange Cassidy. Samoa Joe, Hook, Katsuyori Shibata took on the Learning Tree and Jeff Cobb. And I don't know what the whole thing... See, now here, I'm going to bring this up later, but there was something else attached to this match that didn't manifest itself at all, so I was kind of surprised by that, or maybe I missed it. But this match was highlighted most by the fact that Hook beat Chris Jericho with the Judas Effect, which I think, much like Tanahashi, Jericho's time in the main as a serious main event contender is pretty much done at this point. Jack Perry, Konosuke Takeshita, Mark Briscoe, Dante Martin, Leo Rush, and El Phantasmo, ELP, competed in a ladder match to decide the new AEW TNT champion. Technically, I guess it's still the secondary champion in the company. A lot of fans wanted Takeshita to win this match. Takeshita was awesome. He was the highlight in this match. Absolutely the standout here. Mark Briscoe is always a delight. You got Dante Martin and Leo Rush doing, these are the guys that do the high spots in the match. They're doing their Kofi Kingston role. And then El Phantasmo, who kind of dithered between two. I don't think there was anybody considered Leo Rush or that ELP would win this championship, although I think it would have been kind of funny if ELP won it. But Jack Perry, we all knew this was just kind of a roundabout way to get to Jack Perry winning the title and having to earn it. So Jack Perry does get the win. They brutalized and completely destroyed one of the ladders in this match because they've thrown so many guys on it. That thing looked like a pretzel when it was done. But yeah, some cool moments in here. Probably not the greatest ladder match you're going to see, especially considering the fact that Money in the Bank is next weekend in WWE. So you're probably going to see better ladder matches next week. But this was fine for what it was on the show. Tetsuya Naito and Jon Moxley, probably the match that disappointed me the most in this night. Went a little over 17 minutes, and I don't know, their chemistry was off. They had a much better match for their New Japan show in Chicago. That match was fire. But this match was kind of sloppy. It looked like they lost their way. I don't know if Naito was concussed at one point in this match, but they lost their place a lot in this match, and it felt very flat. If this match too was supposed to be the anchor match for this show, for the Forbidden Door this year, kind of the way that the anchor match in the first year was, or the last year was Ospreay and Omega. Naito and Mox were supposed to be the anchor match between the two promotions this year, and it just did not carry the weight that it should have carried with it. And I'm surprised, but not so much. Tetsuya Naito did defeat Jon Moxley and regain the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship, so Naito's going into the G1 next month as the defending champion into the G1 tournament, which is kind of cool. I don't know. I was not a fan of this match. I thought it was just it was kind of meh. This match being meh kind of made this whole journey of swapping the title back and forth kind of feel kind of flat. But I do give credit for what they tried to do with this, trying to get more exposure in the United States to New Japan Pro Wrestling by having Jon Moxley have the title. However, I think there's diminishing returns on doing these. I wouldn't suggest doing this anytime again soon. Having a New Japan Championship on an AEW talent, I think you've got as much exposure as you can. I think New Japan gets better traction out of matches like Bryan Danielson versus Shingo Takagi than they do putting their world title on a foreigner from AEW for 3 or 4 months. But that's just my opinion. And in the main event, it is Swerve Strickland and Will Ospreay for the AEW World Heavyweight Championship. This, along with the Danielson Shingo match, were my favorite matches of the night, and I would say that the main event, which is a rare thing these days in wrestling for the main event to be the best match of the night, but this was the best match on the night, just edging out the Owen Hart Cup tournament match. I love the fact that these guys went back and forth and showed their speed. You can tell these guys know each other well, work with each other very well, have good chemistry in the ring, have great timing against each other, except for one little botch. This was by far the most exciting match of the night. Has some conflict in there. Don Callis coming in with the screwdriver, trying to get Will Ospreay to follow that lineage of Don Callis and his screwdriver, going back to the Kenny Omega stuff from last year. Ospreay didn't want to do it. Don Callis gets knocked over by Prince Nana, and then Ospreay looks like he's about to stab Nana with the screwdriver, and then he kind of catches himself in this kind of Luke Skywalker and Return of the Jedi moment, and looks down at his hand, and he drops the screwdriver, but that gets him murked by Swerve Strickland, who, through a succession of maneuvers, was finally able to get the pin on a very out-of-it Will Ospreay. Ospreay suffering his first singles defeat since he signed with All Elite Wrestling. Kyle Fletcher coming down to console him after the match. They showed that Daniel Garcia was watching from the little balcony booth, so him and Ospreay have a match for the International Championship coming up on Dynamite this week. And we also have MJF watching on a monitor from behind the scenes. Now, the things that didn't make any sense on this show. They teased a Hangman Page return on Collision last night, yet there was no Hangman Page on the show, which I said, well, if they're teasing him, he's probably coming after Swerve and going to be involved in the main event match some way. No, didn't happen. I thought maybe MJF, since it seems that we're going to get MJF and Ospreay at All In, they would have something in this match. That didn't materialize. Minoru Suzuki claimed that he wanted to have a match with Chris Jericho this weekend. That didn't materialize, so I'm not sure what happened with that. There's a lot going on, but again, the consistency and focus has been an issue of AEW. And on a night like this, when the wrestling itself is just okay, up and down the card, you're not having one of those amazing, like, every match is a banger AEW cards. When you have one of these where it's like, well, you got two or three possible bangers on this show that you would say are matches you should go back and watch, but it wasn't that usual energy on an AEW pay-per-view. Overall, though, it was a good show. Nowhere near as good as last year and the year before's Forbidden Door shows. And the future of the Forbidden Door is quite in question because, like I said, there was a lot of people missing from this. No Shota Umino. Yota Tsuji was in a tag match with Los Ingobernables on the pre-show. The House of Torture wasn't here. Bullet Club War Dogs wasn't here. No Sonata, no El Desperado, none of the guys who've been making a wave and making a name for themselves over in New Japan. And of course, I'd be remiss not to say that I haven't done a video since then. Hikuleo, because they mentioned this on the pay-per-view with El Phantasmo coming out. Hikuleo has had his last match in AEW, and everybody's expecting him to join in with the Bloodline thing. We all knew that was going to happen. For the WWE fans that have never seen this guy, they're going to be able to debut that, either the Solo Sikoa Bloodline or Roman, whatever he's doing when he comes back. One of them is going to get this giant monster coming out, and that's really going to tip the scales. It's funny that there's so many. He's been around for a while, and a lot of people know Hikuleo, but there are probably about half the WWE audience has never seen this guy, and their jaws are going to drop when they see Hikuleo debut in WWE. However, that's left El Phantasmo, who was an honorary Tongan, without any of the tongue. So he's going to have to find, once again, El Phantasmo in New Japan, a man without a family. He got booted out of Bullet Club a year or so ago, and now all of his Tongan brothers have left. So ELP's one, I don't know. I don't know where he's going to wind up and everything going forward in New Japan. Going to be fun to watch him in the G1 tournament and see if they push him. But, I felt from somebody, again, who watches a lot of New Japan without, no TJP, no... some of the guys are pushing no Shota, no Uemura, no Sonata, no El Desperado, not even Yano. It's like the people who are booking this aren't up to date with what's going on in New Japan right now. So I don't know, man. Gabe Kidd apparently. I saw Gabe Kidd. He was on a couple of shows. But this brings up something that I want to talk about, and it was probably one of the more important announcements on the night, along with Britt Baker returning to AEW. But we've got the announcement that on January the 5th, we are going to have, yes it is, I think it is January the 5th, the night after Wrestle Kingdom, we're going to have Wrestle Dynasty at the Tokyo Dome. So it's technically, it's a 2-night, we're back to the 2-night Wrestle Kingdoms, but they're calling the second night Wrestle Dynasty. And this is going to be this is something Tony Khan has hinted at a lot in the post-match press conferences, that they're not going to do AEW's not going to do a show in Japan, but maybe New Japan's going to do its version of Forbidden Door in Japan, and now it appears, yes, that is what is happening. The Tokyo Dome on the 5th will now be the home of Wrestle Dynasty, and it will be like their version of Forbidden Door. It'll be Stardom, CMLL, AEW, and New Japan Pro Wrestling having a cross-promotional event at the Dome. I'm excited for that, and hopefully by then we get some more emphasis. Well, I know since it'll be in Japan, you'll get some of the new young and up-and-coming stars there. I do think that's a strong possibility that we might, at that show, finally get the War Dogs versus Bullet Club Gold. I'm holding my breath for that, because that's right now, between the two companies, that's the match, the dream match I kind of want to see the most. It's kind of one of the few ones still left between AEW and New Japan, so we'll see if we get there in the future. But I want to know what you guys thought about this show. Let your voice be heard in the comment box below. Did you enjoy Forbidden Door? Where do you think we're going from this? Are we going to MJF and Will Ospreay? Well, apparently we're definitely getting Britt Baker and Mercedes Moné, so that's pretty cool. And Mariah May looks like she's on her way to winning the Owen Hart tournament to take on Toni Storm at All In. Is Danielson going to win the tournament? Is Jeff Jarrett going to win the tournament on the men's side to take on Swerve? Can anybody stop Swerve Strickland right now, who looks like he's firing on all cylinders, and he's really kind of filling out the role as being the man in AEW right now? I want to know what you guys think about this, and until next time, I will see you guys here for more news, rumors, and reviews on the Rant and Review Pro Wrestling. Have a good day.